You are worthy of having
absolutely
complete care.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying drugs is like go take drugs, like recreational drugs or anything like that, but I think it is important for us to see it in the viewpoint of, again, that people are just trying to survive. Somebody that, let's say, was abused and then now goes on to abuse because that's what they think is love. They never really knew love. So they're not loving. Guys, go to therapy if you can.
Time is money, so spend yours listening to me talk about things that are important to me and my people.
Time is money. Welcome to the final episode of this incredible series. This is the 4th series. I highly recommend that you go and listen to every single episode if this is the first episode you're tuning into of this series or of this podcast. If you are brand new here, welcome. I'm joined on this series with the wonderful Nikelle, also known as Mental and Me on Instagram. There's an underscore in her handle.
Yeah.
It will be linked in every episode. And if you would like a little taste of the previous episode, there's one playing now. The underrepresentation of ethnic people as mental health practitioners, but the overrepresentation of ethnic people as mental health patients. This is a clear example as to why that could be, or not even example, clear explanation as to why that could be. You've just said you need 5 ACEs to be more likely to experience mental health issues. If you are Black or Asian in the UK, statistically, you are more likely to be poorer.
Yeah.
To, what was the other one you said?
Have experienced racism. Things like your parents being separated.
Have an absent or separated
That's
family.
Very prevalent in the Caribbean community. It could be things like being bullied in your childhood, or like a parent being emotionally abusive. Things like your parent having a mental health difficulty as well is one. There's like a whole range of them.
And we're going to dive straight in.
Cool.
So,
I'm ready.
We spoke about it last time about ACEs, and we spoke about how sometimes, in order to justify almost or commend us further on what we've achieved, we hold our struggle hand in hand with our achievements. So it's like, in the case of my dad, coming all the way back to the first episode about generational trauma, he could never commend me because he would see it as, you've achieved X, fine, but I achieved X, Y, and Z, all whilst getting beaten, for example, by his parents. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that blockage of ACEs and how traumatizing they are, but also the relativeness to what your reality is and how it may feed into that. So I feel like that also feeds into, quite aptly, our whole series on mental health and the lack of people of colour being able to accept mental health issues when they are diagnosed or even pre-diagnosis. I know a lot of people who are from ethnic backgrounds, and in my head it's extremely clear that there are some mental health issues occurring here. Why is nobody talking about it / getting a diagnosis or doing anything like that? I think that there's a massive dismissal of Western medicine. Not to say that I'm fully behind Western medicine or Big Pharma, but I think that it's sometimes dangerous in our communities how much we really, really are against medicine, but then don't have any issues with anything else harmful, substance-wise, that we put into our bodies or consume, and therefore need to self-medicate with. So, I wondered what your perception on all of that is, coming from someone on the front line, so to speak.
Okay, so I think we struggle because we know what the stigma behind having those mental health difficulties, like as the label, what it comes with. So for example, a Black man is like 10 times more likely to be diagnosed with psychosis. Black people are 4 times more likely to be in a mental health hospital than white people, or be in a medium secure unit. So knowing these statistics is kind of like, I don't want them to place these labels on me because then this is more likely to happen. I think people are really scared of labels because it means that, there's more likely for other things to come from that label. And then I also think people actually just don't know what they mean. They don't understand what depression is. They don't understand what anxiety is, psychosis. Like, they just don't get it. I think in their head, they just think the person's like mad and don't see it for what it actually is. So I think that's hard for people to say, oh, now I've got psychosis, when Like,
there's not that language.
There's not that, yeah.
I think another thing as well, I agree with everything you said as well, but there's shame as a massive part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that in order to get the help that you need to reach out. There's shame around reaching out. And there's also shame around speaking to people who look like you sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I have friends from certain backgrounds, and my mum as well can attest to this, because she obviously is a psychotherapist, and she said when she managed a prescribed drugs project in Mind in Hackney, and a lot of the women who were struggling were immigrant women, particularly from Bengali or Turkish backgrounds at that time in that area. And they were addicted to maybe antidepressants, maybe because they're trying to cope with whatever they're going through. For example, they would be more only wanting to speak to her because she was ethnic, but she wasn't their ethnic.
Yeah.
So therefore, they don't feel that worry that she's going to go and tell anyone in the community, because you don't know anyone, obviously, to tell. And I'm mind blown by that, because surely from my perspective, like, I've been begging every time I've got therapy, I've begged to have someone who looked like me or someone who had like the same cultures I have, or someone who, whatever it might be. And every time they've not been able to find one, but still, that would be my dream.
Yeah.
I don't even spare a thought for would you tell anyone or anything like that. That's not even, but that could be due to how not integrated I am in those cultures. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really have much exposure to Punjabi people other than like my mum or my mum's friends. Yeah. Because I wasn't really in and around it that much. So maybe if I was, then I would have more worry potentially. And as the Trinidad, not even a thought. Do you know what I mean? Like, that side, that's not even a problem. No. So I wonder how much of an effect that has.
Yeah, I do think that definitely that some people don't like speaking from people from their communities, because they do worry that it will like get back, or there'll be shame, or people be like, wow, like she couldn't cope. And I think a lot of ethnic groups see it as, if they could cope, why can't I? And that is a real problem, because we're all different people. Like, we all cope with stuff differently. We've all gone through slightly different life experiences. So it's not fair, and it's very like gaslighting on yourself to think that just because someone else went through that experience and dealt with it that way, that I must now be able to deal with it. But that is very strong in ethnic communities. And again, it's about not speaking about it and not even being a conversation. So for you to be the one that's like, actually, I am depressed, is like, she said the magic word that nobody's allowed to say. Like, do you get what I mean? And then that brings even more shame, because people don't know what to say. Well, people don't know how to react to this, and it's just a cycle.
I agree. I think it is really sad that there's this thought of like you said, taking the easy way out kind of thing, because I think that's what people have the perception of taking medication. Yeah. As well. I think there's a massive distrust to Western medicine. Have you noticed that in your work?
Well, that people are more likely to take the medication or not?
Less likely, because they're distrustful.
Yeah, I do feel like people are distrustful for medication. But sometimes I feel like it's because they're distrustful of the person giving it to them rather than the medication itself. Because, like, sometimes, I know this is something I think about a lot, but, like, I feel like a lot of communities are okay taking paracetamol and ibuprofen, but then when it comes to like mental health stuff, they're a bit more like, what's this gonna do to me? And, you know, people have like religion, things like that, and that can contribute to, I don't need to take this medication because I can pray to God, I can pray to Allah. So all of that as a whole kind of affects people's thoughts about medication. But yeah, I do think that the person giving the medication, how much information they give about the medication and how much the person feels like they can trust that person is a big factor. Usually, how it works where I work is that the psychiatrist will prescribe the medication. So even though they're not the person that's administering it, and it usually is a nurse, they would know the doctor gave that to me. So people are like, can I speak to the doctor? Like, people don't kind of dismiss the nurse because they know it came from that person.
Fine. Okay, fine. So in this chain, if the doctor is someone who you feel is completely unrelatable to you, doesn't look like you, doesn't really care about your well-being, if that's which I felt before when I've experienced gone to the doctors for things, and 100% because the doctor has said to me, you're going to need to take this antibiotics, or you're going to need to do this or whatever, I've purely because I don't like them,
been like, not me.
Those were my exact words.
Same.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you on that. And I think, unfortunately, the only way to combat that is obviously to have more doctors that look like us. But other than that, what else can you do? Because the thing is, I am guilty as well of always wanting the natural. Only thing I Google when I have a problem is natural way to, and then I'll say whatever I need to say. Like at the moment, I've got like stress hives, natural way to get rid of stress hives, natural way to tummy ache, natural way. That's all I Google because I'm so against any kind of anything going. Like it's so ingrained in me that I don't want to give that power to this substance, and then I don't want to then get addicted to it. So how do we move past that? Because that's all that's passed down to a lot of us. How do we get around that? Because then you're faced with things where actually no, you need this medication because you're not well.
I am a strong believer of the biopsychosocial model. So I mentioned this on Mental and Me on my Instagram, and it's basically about the biological makeup, the psychological makeup, the social makeup, right? And there are things. I think that everything should be taken like as a holistic
approach.
Yeah. So, for example, I do think medication is good if you need it. I do think then also some psychological approach and also looking at society around you. So I am not anti-medication. I used to be a bit like you in terms of like, I would like natural ways. And if you can...
I would like to say I'd like to hope I'm more, and if you can do natural.
Yeah.
And not just, not do any... I'm not a do natural, and if you can't do natural, do nothing. I'm a do natural if you absolutely, try everything to do natural. And then if you can't do something a bit stronger, fine. But I also struggle with people that are so quick to just go straight to the
medication.
Yeah.
I think I do get what you mean. And I think it varies in the situation you're going through because, like, at the end of the day, like... So, and I get it because sometimes you might meet a doctor and like they're just trying to get you in and out, and it feels like the relational aspect is missing, and that's why I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to take the medication because you didn't really sit down to get to know me, to explain it to me. But like sometimes like these people have studied for years and years and years, so they do generally know. This is how I see it anyway. And yes, like natural stuff is good, like when I feel nauseous and stuff, which is quite regularly, like I do drink a lot of peppermint tea or like ginger tea, and my ginger and lemon tea help me so much in the morning, and that does help. But I need to take my medication. So little side story so I can explain this properly. So for example, I have endometriosis. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Absolutely. If you listen to series 1 of the podcast, it's all about it.
Oh, is it? Oh,
well, it's not all about endometriosis, but it's about periods, menstruation.
Okay, well, I need to go back.
Absolutely.
Right, I will go back to that. Thanks. But yeah, I have endometriosis and it's really, really painful. It makes me faint every month, lose a lot of blood. Like, it's horrible. When I was younger, I was in the hospital all the time, every period, ambulance called, Nikelle on the floor, and...
Can I ask, very randomly,
yeah.
has that got anything to do with you wanting a relationship, do you reckon? The only reason I ask that, by the way, is because I have a friend and she has polycystic ovaries.
Yeah.
And she is on very strong medication for it. And I said to her a while ago, I think you should come off the medication because the side effects, and it's known, like for this type of medication that she's on, the side effects are very strong and it can lower her fertility. And I said, I think you should come off and just see what your fertility's saying whilst you're off, and then go back on if everything's okay. Do you know what I mean? Obviously that's a very simplified way of doing it, but you get what my consensus was. And she said because of how horrendous her PCOS is, she's not going to risk coming off the medication ever until she's with a person who she knows will stand by her thick and thin, so that they're there through all of the hardship of it. She's like, I can't risk it. Like, I don't want to put myself in that position, kind of thing.
If I'm thinking of what you're saying in the same way, I'm with her as well. I am not coming off my medication. I can't, literally, my body can't take this pain. Like, it's so painful. I faint constantly. And this is what I mean about the holistic way.
I interrupted you. Go on.
No, it's fine. In terms of like, when the doctors first said to me, you need to go on the pill and you need to this, you need to that, I was like, not me. Like, I'm not doing that. And I suffered for months because I didn't want to do that. And I was like, I just do some breathing techniques. I'll be in my room like, before you know it, I'm on the floor, I'm passed out, I'm not conscious. Until I was like, you know what, let me listen to these doctors. So I did. I took my medication. It didn't completely help, as in sometimes I would still faint, but it did help a lot. It actually helped a lot. But there's more that I need to do in this. It's not just the medication. And I will link this back to mental health in a second.
That's fine. You go.
So after the medication, I then was like, let me look at my society around me kind of thing, my environment. I spoke to another woman with endometriosis, and she was talking about, all these stressful environments, things that she needs to change, all that kind of stuff. So I looked at my environment. I looked at what's stressing me out. What is happening for me? When does this period
get worse?
Yeah. And it does get worse in stressful times.
I don't even have endometriosis, and I 1,000% agree with you. If I'm having a stressful month, my period is 10 times worse. Yeah. 10 times pain, 10 times like symptoms, tiredness, the work. If I'm having a good summer month, I won't even notice. The only way I'll know when my period is because there'll be blood. That's it.
Really?
When I'm on holiday and I have my period, it's fine. Yeah. I'm like, and it's the heat as well. The heat really helps. Yeah. The water access, and I'm in the water a lot, and like the sleep, all of that.
It's really helpful.
100%.
Yeah. See, so your environment does play like a big factor in this, but then we also need to look at psychological as well, in terms of why am I stressed? What can I do to calm this stress down? What is going on for me at this moment? So in my therapy, I do speak sometimes about my endometriosis. I used to worry, like, can I not have children? Like, what can I do? Like, somebody needs to check these eggs quickly because that's all I want. Like, I just want my children. And obviously that linked back to the whole, how can you have children if you're scared of men? Where are the children coming from?
Sperm banks, but I agree.
I know, but
for the purpose of your growth.
For the purpose of my growth, yes. Where's the child coming from? So linking this back to mental health, I do think it's important for you to take your medication if somebody that is specialised in that field knows this is going to help you. I studied this for 10 years and I know that this will help you. Then also, therapy, also like psychological help. How else can we, because your mind and your body are connected. So you need to look at psychological ways to manage this as well, and your environment. It needs to be like a holistic thing that you work on. And with mental health, I do feel like a lot of people shy away from taking medication, which, like, at first, if you want to not do it and see how that goes, maybe you could, because you can just have therapy and that's fine, then do that. But if that's not working, I do feel like you're doing yourself a disjustice to not try all means of help. Like, if something can help you, then why would you not try it?
1,000% agree. I've got so much to say on that. The first thing is someone very close to me has bipolar. Yeah. And they do not want to be on the medication. They hate the medication. The medication makes them very sad, depressed, and suicidal. Right. But when they're off the medication, they're very manic, as is the way that bipolar shows for them. So it's very hard because, like you say, the way I can conceive it is that when you're on medication, it's the easier route because you're taking a substance and that's doing the work, essentially. When you're off medication, it's not impossible, but it's a lot harder, even in the sense of your endometriosis. If the environment's right, if you could afford to live in Grenada, for example, and you could afford to work from there or not work and have no stress.
That would be nice.
And you could eat everything you needed for an endometriosis specific diet, the highest quality, highest organic, blah, 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 blah. There's a chance you may not need the medication if you could do it solely on those things. Yeah. But the reality is you don't live that life right now and you need the help in the medication. So I'm absolutely not, and I think that's why it's harmful for me to have the perceptions I do regarding medication, because I like to think of myself as if I was in that situation, I would be the person that did absolutely everything I could before doing medication. Yeah. But some people do not have the capacity to do absolutely everything. Yeah. And who knows how I would be in that position, let's be honest. So it's a very, very hard one for me, and I really struggle with it because I also feel like it's hard that the medications available, especially for most serious mental health issues, are very generic and they're not specialised to person by person, hence why there are so many bad responses to it. Not to mention, particularly in people of colour, because we aren't the ones who these medications are made for, tailored to.
Yeah, I get that. I do think, like, because your care is your care, do you see what I mean? So everyone has a right to, like, be like, I don't want to take this medication, and they don't have to. I just think that if you don't take medication and you've tried to exhaust every possible way of managing your difficulty, like I did, because I didn't take the pill at first. I'm on very high dosages of codeine now for my endometriosis, but before I never took it. I was like, no, I don't want to take all this stuff. And then you learn, I can't manage. I think it's important for you to know that you are worthy of having
Absolutely.
complete care.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have to take medication, look at psychological, look at your environment. You might want to just look at your environment first. That's not working. Look at your environment and your psychological health. That's not working. Okay, environment, psychological health, medication. I just don't think it's something that should just be like X'd out. Yeah, and just not. And of course, like, I don't think medication alone is going to be that helpful for anyone anyway. I think if you're taking medication, you do have to look at other factors around you. For example, like in the NICE guidelines for psychosis, it says, a good contributing factor for psychosis, or like to help with those symptoms, is medication, but it's also family therapy and like CBT, like one-on-one CBT. But people forget the other two and just say, oh, like medication.
When I say I get angry that people go straight to medication and they ignore everything else,
Yeah.
and they put sometimes the medication one on the pedestal and think that that's more important than the others.
Yeah.
That's the problem I have, because it's like, yeah, okay, cool, medication is a part of it, it's not all of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Curveball, where do you stand on drugs, considering you work in mental health?
Okay, so I have never taken drugs before, and that's because I knew about mental health difficulties before I ever got to uni and stuff. So I worked in mental health from college, and I never had access to like smoking weed or like doing balloons or anything like that. So I'd never got a chance to do that before I knew the effects it could have. I mean, it's a hard one because I can see how much drugs affects people and their mental health. So I'm always going to go on the viewpoint of like,
Why would you do that?
What? Yeah, like don't like it's harmful. But I also don't want to not acknowledge that, you know, there are people like, for example, all Rastafarians that might smoke cannabis as part of their like practice and be okay. So I don't want to be ignorant to the you know, other
and
people's
also
practices.
like research into like how hallucinogens, for example, like ayahuasca's the big rage at the moment, and mushrooms, and
people be taking all sorts.
Because for me it's insane, but for some people this is like, you know.
And also like, again, I'm not saying drugs is like go take drugs, like recreational drugs or anything like that, but I think it is important for us to see it in the viewpoint of, again, that people are just trying to survive. And people don't just take drugs to take drugs, do you know what I mean? So
some people do.
Well, yeah, some people might take drugs for fun.
Yeah, recreational
drugs. But a lot of people, like, there will still be underlying reasons deep down somewhere.
Yeah,
like
escapism.
Yeah, that you feel like I should take these recreational drugs for fun. Or, so I've had a client before that was smoking cannabis for their back pain. And actually, that makes reasonable sense. I understand why you did that. It's not, I don't think, going to be helpful for their mental health in the long run, but they're trying to survive. Like, and I've been in situations where my endometriosis pain is so painful.
If someone held a joint out, you'd be like,
I'd probably be like, give me anything. Like, when I'm on that gas and air in the ambulance on my way to hospital, I am like, top this up, and then like it's finished. I'm like, so I can see how this happens and how people, you know, get into this situation. But yeah, don't do drugs, guys.
No, I totally agree, and it's another contentious one for me. I just don't want people to keep hearing it from me.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like, I really struggle with, especially when you know now in the age we're in, and and I feel the same about alcohol. I just feel like with everything we know now, and I don't know if you may not, because you're a little bit younger than me, you may not have got to this point yet, but I noticed in a lot of my peers now, people when we were younger who would just do recreational drugs at parties or just drink with friends or whatever, but every time you saw them they would be either on drugs or drinking, even though it was in those environments it was constant, are now people who have actually formed habits where they can't actually, there's been a couple talks of rehab and like checking into, getting some help with an addiction, like it's happening, do you know what I mean? So I do feel like it's never too early to take heed of what's happening around you. I'm not saying don't have fun or whatever, but I'm also saying do know that like it's all about the mindset you're doing these things in. If you're doing these things whilst you are trying to escape something, or there's an underlying thing like Nikelle just said, then it's more likely this is going to have a harmful effect on you, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing I wanted to raise is how you felt as a practitioner, mental health practitioner, with our response as a society in the Western world to people with mental health issues. Bit of context. I have my mum's really good friend is another psychotherapist, and so we all have these kind of conversations all the time. And she was saying that like she's Turkish, and in the village she's from in Turkey, there are people who have mental health issues, but when they do things like, for example, they might be a bit loud or a bit aggressive, or they might kick something, or do you know what I mean? Something can happen. They aren't treated as a villain or a weirdo, or there's no stigma. They're just given love and they're just given support. Do you know what I mean? And that just made me really think about the society we live in. And I think part of the reason we feel so shameful to have any kind of mental health issues, especially in our communities, is because we know that here in the UK or in Western world, there isn't that. It's like, oh, you're not fitting the standard, you're not this, you're not that, yeah, off you go, or time for you to be medicated or whatever it might be, and that's scary. What do you think about that?
I think it's true. I think like family support or like community is a very big thing in a lot of cultures, but it's not that big in like Western
it's not at
cultures.
all, I don't think, in Western culture.
But it is a big contributing factor. Like I said, for psychosis, like one of the nice guidelines is basically that like some sort of family interventions, family therapy, because that helps. Like that's a community is what holds you. Yeah.
What does NICE stand for? Because people just think you mean NICE.
Sorry. It's what is it? National Institution for Care and Excellence. There we go.
Wow.
You might see, I don't know, you guys, when you go to the doctors and you might say say to the doctor like, I've got this symptom, and then they start typing on their computer real quick. They're on the NICE guidelines. That's what they're on.
Wow.
And it's just like most healthcare practitioners will go on there for like a bit of extra advice, a bit of, that's like the NHS like gold standard kind of. It tells you what to do in certain situations. So yeah, that's what that is. And I do think even like for depression and stuff, like having society around you, like a real community that's going to support you through this stuff, is very like key.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I think that environment isn't spoken about enough.
No.
And I think, again, ethnic people, weather, like we're in a cold environment that's grey a lot, and it's not. I always think about this because I think about like, I feel unfortunately I'm very indoctrinated now into thinking that this capitalist, like, I've killed myself to buy my property, work hard, 9 to 5, all of that. And then it's like, in my head I go to like, I wish I could just go in like, or my boyfriend always says, I wish I could just go and live on a boat and sell fish or carpets, for example. Do you know what I mean? In the middle of a Fiji island somewhere, no one knows. Nice. Absolutely. But then I go to that place in my mind and I think, would I be able to be stimulated by that? Would that be, is the indoctrination so great in me now that I actually think that this quality of life is the standard?
Yeah. I think, yeah, because I know, so I went to Grenada a couple months ago, and I was a bit like, okay, like, what's next? Like, I'm a bit bored. Like, you lot are walking so slow. Hurry the hell up. And, like, I do need to be stimulated a lot more. So I think, I don't know if it's, like, just within us or, like, how we've grown up or what, but I do think I would struggle to just live there. Like, you know, people are like, oh, I'll retire early and just live on the beach. Like, no, I need to be doing stuff. Like,
so now we live in an age where technology is what it is. Do you think that our generation will be the generation that can do both, where we can go and live in these environments and do our work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you?
Yeah, if I do private practices, I could do my therapy sessions on the beach.
Would you?
Maybe. I don't think I could stay in one place personally, so I think I would travel around, but I could travel around and do like therapy sessions.
And do you think that if we do that as a whole, as a generation, this is going to have a positive effect on our mental health because we're changing the environment?
I think it's going to have a mixed effect. So I go therapy online. I've actually never like face-to-face met my therapist, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And that's okay for me because I have a strong family environment. So I feel that human support around me anyway. But I guess if someone feels like very lonely and wants human contact and then now the therapist is also online, then that might not be as helpful as seeing them face to face and having that like, you know, real strong human connection.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And what do you think about like different types of love and how they affect, or do you think there are different types of love actually? I'm asking, this does link to mental health. I think that sometimes people's mental health is affected, not sometimes, a lot, because of the love they've received or lack thereof. And I think sometimes people can interpret like that survivor love that we have experienced from either like family, relatives or whatever as the only type. So that's how sometimes toxic relationships can be formed where, you know, I don't know what the statistics are, but I can imagine sometimes women who haven't had very absent or loving parents / dads then go out with a boy who might not be very serious or whatever, might end up in prison and stays with him. And do you know what I mean? Like she may not know there's an other type of love than that.
Yeah.
Do you think that that still is a type of love, even though it is not whole? Or do you think...
Okay, so I'm going to answer these in like separate things. So
Absolutely.
For women or men or people that stay with a love that they're familiar with, a love that they're familiar with, is more because that's all that they know. So they might know or be curious that there's another type of love out there, but just stay where they're comfortable. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people do that. So for example, let's say women that watch their mum be abused by their dad, they are probably more likely to end up with a man that is abusive in some way because that's the love that they know. Or women that go with toxic men and then the next man's toxic and the next man's toxic, but that's the only form of love that they know and they understand and it feels safe. And even though it's not safe, people kind of develop that better the devil I know kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like...
Or no new friends.
Yeah.
Is another similar one.
All of that kind of stuff is like, I know how to handle this shit situation, basically. So I'm going to stay here because I know how to handle that. I don't know how to handle someone being really lovely to me. That's a bit scary. Yeah. I'm going to not do that one. So that is what a lot of women and sometimes men do. So that's that one section. And then the one about love, I personally feel like you can't love someone and abuse them or like not respect. I personally feel like they come all together. And then I think it doesn't become love once that happens. It becomes lust in terms of like,
you like the idea.
You like the idea of that person.
Of it, but
you like,
not
yeah,
the whole
but you
commitment.
don't love that person because I know I'm not saying everyone knows what it feels like to experience love as it is, but we all probably have had an experience of loving something, even if it's an object, and you know that no matter what you're going through, you treat that thing like a trophy because you love that thing, right? So, for example, like, I don't know, as a 6-year-old, like, I loved my Barbie. Like, I'm not going to go and dash my Barbie in the garden because I love the Barbie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, my friends have this. Chuck it away. That's because I don't love it. Yeah. I'm lusting over it. I wish I loved it. I like, everyone else has it.
I like it.
I like this. Yeah. This seems cool.
Yeah.
Chuck it away. Because I don't love this. And that's how I perceive love. Like, I don't think someone will particularly like abuse you or anything like that if they loved you.
But they might not know that it's abuse because they haven't experienced love. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the thing. It's so cyclical, and that's why the key of everything is the awareness.
Yeah.
And I think especially for men, it's difficult because some men have got such a troubled relationship with women and love, or if they're not heterosexual men, and they cannot treat a person that they like or love well as a partner because they think that the only type of safe love is familial love. Do you know what I mean? So they've only had love from like a mum or a sister, for example.
Yeah.
So when it comes to a girlfriend, if they really love the girlfriend and they want to protect her and keep her safe and all those things, then they wouldn't make her a girlfriend, because in their head, girlfriends, you don't have that kind of love for a girlfriend.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's the same kind of concept as men saying like, oh yeah, she's a good time, but I wouldn't wife her. She's not wifey material, but she is like sex material. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of like difference in different types of loves. But I worry that sometimes we normalize that when actually what you're saying I agree with.
Yeah.
There is one love which is pure and wholehearted, and anything in between is not love. It's just a strong like, or maybe a lust, or something else.
I just think that if, like, even if it's all you know as what you perceive as love, it's still not love. Like, you're still incapable of loving that person in that way until you understand what love really is, if that makes sense. So, like, somebody that, let's say, was abused and then now goes on to abuse because that's what they think is love, they never really knew love. So they're not loving.
No, I agree.
Because it's not love. This is like lust, a fantasy, a crush, I don't know. But it isn't love, because love at its purest form wouldn't do that. It is my opinion anyway.
Yeah. And what do you think about, with that same vein, transactional and conditional love that a lot of us have experienced from family members if you are ethnic?
I think, again, I know I keep chucking this word out, but I feel like it comes more from survival than it does like that they mean to do it as such. So for example, like,
just to define transactional and conditional love, by the way, that just means that if you, I don't know, you know, a lot of our parents will tell us that they may not say I love you or I'm proud of you, but what they will do is, you know, let us live in their house, cook us dinner, keep us safe, and that's the love. And then as a result of that, we are then expected to, you know, go to uni, get a good job, and anything they need, be there for them. Yeah.
I think it just comes from... See, it's hard for me to speak on this topic because I'm a third generation British person. So I can't say that. I mean, I do experience some sort of transactional love from my mum in ways, but I wouldn't say it compares to my friends that are first generation British.
Yes.
Because my mum didn't come from another country and like go through the same type of struggles as some of my peers whose parents did. And it's the same for my nan. Like, my nan also was born in England. She didn't come from another country. So, do you get what I mean? So I feel like that doesn't present as much in my house. But I suppose
okay, then when you see it in your friends, for example, where it is more first gen, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think that it, obviously, I don't think it's good, but I do think that it comes from a sense of their parents struggled for the achievement of being here. So they want you to achieve this for their children to achieve this. So it's like a
repayment.
Yeah, kind of thing. And I'm not sure, like, it...
The reason I'm pushing you on this is because I'm trying to work out, because you've got a very strong position on men and that kind of romantic love.
Yeah.
But I would argue that sometimes the conditional, transactional love you get from parents can be almost as harmful.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I was just checking if you agree.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I just think that the viewpoint, not that I agree with it, but the viewpoint of those parents are that I struggle to even get you here, and now you better make my struggle worthwhile.
Trust me.
Basically, is what I think the rationale behind it is. No, I don't agree with it, but I do think that it comes out of what they think is love. What they think is like, I didn't need to come here to give you a better life, but I did, so get a better life. It's basically how I think they're viewing it.
Yeah.
And obviously, again, with the generational trauma, I know we keep bringing this up.
No, we need to bring it up more.
It's obviously a lot of the generations before struggle to achieve. So they're seeing it as, I've struggled, now achieve. If you don't achieve, then I struggled in vain. Like, I struggled for no reason. And that's not happening because the struggle was hard. So I just think that's how they view it, but not thinking of, like, this is a separate person. Like, I've done my achievement. Now let my child do their struggle and achievement. Do you know what I mean? But they're not seeing it like that. They're seeing it as my struggle, so achieve.
Yeah, literally.
It's just the difficulty in it.
I agree with everything you said, and I think we could sit here and talk for hours.
We could.
Would you come back?
I absolutely would. I feel like there's loads that we could, like, talk about.
Absolutely. What has been your takeaway from this? What would you like to share? What would you, if we haven't already? This is the final episode, so it can be from previous episodes, and you can signpost people to those episodes if you want.
Okay. I think there's a couple of things I would share. So in the second episode, I would share about, guys, go to therapy if you can. I know it's such a privilege. Like, I'm really speaking from a privileged position right now. But if you can go to therapy, I honestly feel like it's changed my life. Like, and I know people think of therapy as, like, you know, you're really struggling with your mental health and, like, you want to end your life and all this stuff. But, like, therapy can just be to grow as a person. Like, that's literally what I went for. I
actually get really triggered when my brother, for example, if I speak about having therapy with him, as in, like, I'm having therapy, he'll say, what's wrong with your life? Why do you need therapy?
Yeah. And it's really
the reason it's so funny is because part of the reason I need it is because of him. But honestly, it's that, like, I would second what Nikelle just said in that you should get it. But equally, if you're not ready to get it, do not ever put anyone else down for getting it, because you have no idea how much it's taken for them to get to that point. Especially if you're ethnic, before you've even gone into the therapist's seat or booked the appointment, you've had 1,000 voices in your head tell you, this is what white people do, what are you doing?
Yeah, literally.
So please respect. It's taken them a lot to do that.
And also, yeah, like, therapy just doesn't need to be because you're struggling. It can be for, like, self-awareness, like I said, for maintenance, just to get to know yourself better. It could be for a range of stuff. Like, it's so beneficial for us, especially to break these generational traumas. If me and you weren't in therapy, then we would be carrying on the trauma too, and we're not. We're saying, one second, let's take a break, let's think about this, and let's break this curse, let it go. So yeah, that is one of the things. My second thing, sorry, I'm just talking.
You do as many as you want, honey.
If you are Black or Asian person that wants to get into psychology, I'm not gonna lie, it is hard, but you absolutely can do this. If I did it, and bearing in mind, like, I was not that smart in school, I didn't even get that many GCSEs, I really, really wasn't smart. You just have to believe in yourself. And it's going to be hard because there's going to be a lot of people that don't believe in you. But like I said in the previous episode, if you believe in yourself, you will get there. But I do mentor a specific amount of people every 6 months. So the next intake will be in June. And this is from minority background. So if you follow my mental health page, I'll send you the link and you can just sign up. And then we can start our mentoring. We do videos. We can go over interview styles. We go over your applications for degrees, masters. So, yeah.
That is amazing.
Another thing.
That is so good.
Yeah.
That was really nice. Now, another curveball. We have on this podcast a world news segment. So part of everything Maya's Minute stands for is to basically champion and radiate the voices of people who are underrepresented.
Right.
And often that's people across the world or little things that you wouldn't know about, basically. Or not everybody knows about. That's not common knowledge. That it's helpful to be common knowledge. If you go all the way back to the first series, when I first started this, the example I gave is that I was at work and I was chatting to like workmates and I was really excited about The Woman King, the film. And I was like, you know, talking about it and how I'd just seen it and I was amazed and blah, blah, blah. And then a colleague was like, what's that? And I was so mind blown that you couldn't know what The Woman King is when it's Viola Davis and it's an all black female cast. This is massive.
Yeah.
But obviously for that person, this isn't a big deal in her world. So why would she know about it? You know? So on a more serious level, I like to use a little time in every series to shed a bit of light maybe on something that is happening around the world and you may not know about and is maybe not common knowledge.
I'm trying to think. I have two in my mind.
Oh, wow.
But does it have to be something that's happened in the world or just something that I think...
Absolutely something that the other
people
thing.
should know?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're jumping a little bit back episode-wise.
Okay.
But I feel like something everybody should know is that you can experience trauma through someone else. So it's called vicarious trauma. And it's basically that Maya might have gone through something and then she tells me about it and I find that experience really traumatic because I can connect with what you're saying and that's now like a trauma that I'll take as well. An example of this is I watched When They See Us.
I can't watch it.
And it tore me to pieces. I don't think I even expected to watch what I watched, but I was sobbing. I was in tears.
I watched up until, like, I think halfway through the first episode. I couldn't watch anymore because of this.
Yeah?
Yeah.
My heart was literally, I felt like my heart was breaking. It was hurting me, like, it was horrible. I had to do, like, some breathing techniques. I found this really traumatic. And then I thought, why are you crying? Like, you didn't go through this. I'm not even sure I was alive. And then, you know, I learned about vicarious trauma. And I think that's really important for people to know that, you know, watching movies, listening to stories, that can be a traumatic experience as well. And you should not gaslight yourself when these things happen because, yeah, it's also part of trauma.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was the second thing you were going to say?
So guys, please read up on George Floyd if you do not know. I think that is a very key part of what will be our generation's history. And it brought a lot for the Black Lives Matters movement. So yeah, please familiarise yourself with that because that is really important in our community.
Wow. Okay. This has been an incredible series. Thanks. I'm so grateful for you to be here. And I've shared all of this. Where can people find you?
So at Mental and Me with an underscore on Instagram, at Mental and Me, just that, on TikTok. And then my website is www.mentalandme.org.
Amazing. Everyone listening through the whole series, or if you're just new and this is your first episode, check out the rest of Maya's Minutes. Thank you for your continued support. Please continue to subscribe, share, follow, engage on social media, whatever it might be. Really, really appreciate you. And I'll see you on the next series. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap.
How was it? Tell me the truth.
I loved every single moment of it. I thought it was wonderful. I think that from the first one, we more got our flow. That's always the way.
Yeah.
I'm not upset about that.